Hello, I'm Hayward and I am going to give the first video recap for our summer semester 604 class. Okay, so our agenda for the day is we started with student information sheets. Next, we did a class overview to talk about goals and what our class is about. Then we did our speaking diagnostics. And finally, we talked a little bit about visual literacy. So now I'm going to go into each one of those and tell a little bit more information about each. So our student information sheets we did at the beginning of class as people were coming in. The student information sheet looks a little bit like this. It was just a way for us to give some basic information to our teacher and our class. Name, nickname, our schedule. There was a backside where we talked a little bit about English classes we've taken in the past, some things that we think are easy for us for English, some things that are difficult, and a chance to describe our strengths and weaknesses. But overall, this was really quick and very easy to do. Next, we started with our class overview, and the first thing we did with our class overview was talk about our class goals or class learning outcomes. And so we had a piece of paper like this, and there were 6 outcomes here that we want to be able to do at the end of the semester. So really quickly, I'm going to recap the 6 goals and I'm going to paraphrase each one to make it easier to understand. So our first goal is basically to understand main ideas in long listening activities like lectures, movies, anything that's more than, say, 5 or 10 minutes. Our next goal was basically to use English in class. So this is to help us make confidence and speak and listen more in class so we can participate in critiques and answer questions when people call on us and work with Native American speakers or Native English speakers when we're working in groups and pairs in our other classes. Our third goal was to basically be able to answer questions clearly and completely. So if someone asks us a question, we can answer with more than a yes or no, but give a complete answer and talk for more than 1 or 2 minutes. Our fourth goal is to improve our pronunciation to help us become more understandable. I think it's really difficult in 7 weeks to get our pronunciation to be perfect, but we can improve our pronunciation so more people can understand what we're saying. And our next goal is to understand what we read and be able to write about those ideas. So if I read an article or read something from my textbook, I need to be able to explain in writing what I read and what those main ideas were. And our final class goal is to improve my grammar to help my writing become more understandable. Again, it's going to be really difficult in 7 weeks to get perfect grammar, but we can improve it so that our writing is clearer and easier for people to understand. So those were our class goals. The next thing we talked about was our required textbook for the class. Our textbook is Well Said 3rd edition. So everybody needs to get a copy of this book as soon as possible. You can get it from Alexander Books on 2nd Street near Market, or you can order it from Amazon. If you order a new copy, I recommend get it shipped as soon as possible. And if you order a used copy, please be aware that it might take a couple weeks to get here. So please hurry and get your textbook soon. The next thing we talked about was promotion from ESL 604. EAP 604. To graduate from the EAP department and take no more ESL, you need to get at least a B- in the speaking and listening part of the class and a B- in the writing and grammar part of the class. You need both of these to be B- or above, okay? So what's really important to understand is if you get a B in the speaking and listening part, but a C in the writing and grammar part, next semester you will need to take another writing and grammar class. because you made a C in one section of this class. So both of these grades need to be B minus or above, okay? That's how you get promoted for no more ESL. The next thing we talked about were our grades in this class. And so we got a piece of paper that looks like this. And so we can see we have two kinds of grades. We have developing grades and major grades. So we have, let's see, developing and major. Developing, major. So developing grades are practice grades, and major grades are really big, important grades. And so what Hayward did is he gave us a sheet that looks like this, and this is our schedule to show us when all of our assignments for this class are due. So these are the beginning are mostly developmental, and then the last couple weeks, these are all of our really big, important major grade assignments. The next thing we did is we started our speaking diagnostic. And the way we warmed up for our speaking diagnostic is we started talking about symbols and what is a symbol. And so we decided that a symbol is something that represents something else. Usually it's a material object, something we can see or touch, that represents something else, maybe something abstract that we cannot touch. And we talked about different examples of symbols. So for example, we talked about a peace sign is a kind of symbol. A stop sign is a kind of symbol. Logos like the Nike swoosh or the Coca-Cola bottle are kinds of symbols. The radioactive sign is a kind of symbol. And then after we had all these examples, we started thinking about what kind of symbols would represent us as people. So if I need to make a symbol for me, what can I use? And so we had some time to use a piece of paper, and then we made a name tent that had our name on it with our symbol. And we had some time to kind of talk to our friends and explain what our names and our symbols meant. And finally, we gave a very short presentation about our names. And this was our first kind of challenge where we stood in front of the class and spoke to the class and introduced ourselves and what our names meant and what our symbols that we chose were. And that was our first speaking diagnostic. Finally, after our speaking diagnostics were finished, we started talking about visual literacy. And what is visual literacy? Visual literacy is going to be very important because it is our theme all summer for 604. So lots of the activities that we're going to be doing are going to connect to visual literacy. And so we decided that visual literacy is the ability to read and create images that communicate to people. It's basically the ability to read images with all of the different meanings involved. And we watched a short video that showed us different kinds of images and kind of introduce us into how we can read these and how these images can be connected to similar ideas but have very, very different meanings. And then we thought a little bit about how we can take this idea of visual literacy and connect it to our major classes and how we can use these ideas when we start to create work in our major class. And that was visual literacy. Last but not least, before we left, we talked a little bit about what our homework was for the end of the day. So we had 3 homework assignments. Our first homework assignment was to email Hayward. He gave us our email address on the board. It was cgenilat, C as in Charlie, GIGNILLIAT @academyart.edu. Our second homework assignment was to buy a copy of Well Said. We need to get a copy of this book as soon as possible. And our third homework assignment was to set up an account with Edmodo. We're going to be using edmodo.com on our phones and online to kind of help us communicate about our class. Edmodo is kind of like a Facebook for school. So we're going to try it and see if it works. All right, so that was our first recap for day 1 of ESL 604, summer 2013. thank you very much for listening, and I hope it was very helpful. Have a great day. Bye.